So I want to talk about some of our key tools that we'll use this semester or that you have available to you. And the first one I want to talk about is our Google Drive. So as we mentioned, a lot of times we'll provide data sets to you all, and you guys will be able to just download it from our Canvas page or our class module or something like that. But in some cases we might collaborate, or we might have some activities where you guys are collaborating, and we want for you to either collect some data or to merge some data or to work with your buds. And Google Sheets really works pretty well for that, as long as there's a person or two, and there aren't 25, 30 people there doing it simultaneously. And so that's great, but have noticed some issues over the recent past that people are maybe starting to mess up a little bit. So I want to go over real quickly a few things about Google Drive and how to use it. When we do have something that we provide for you all, so we might make Professor Spies and I might make a master data set, let's see, or a master sheet into which you might add your data or manipulate it, whatever. That's great. We're not going to make a sheet for group A, a sheet for group B, a sheet for group C. We're just going to make a sheet, and then you guys should take it and go with it. And so the first thing to say is don't screw up that original sheet, right? So sometimes just we're not used to this. It's very easy to do accidentally. So we don't want to mess up other folks. When you want to get a copy of that to work with with your group, let's say, or your partners, totally cool. That should be somewhere else. You have a couple different options here, but that should not be in our just default group mothership landing drive kind of thing. Generally speaking, if we want you guys to add to that master document, go ahead and save a local copy of that file, do your stuff, do your collaborations, do your editing, your cleaning, whatever the task we're asking you to do, and then locally on your own computer, on your own cloud drive, whatever. And then once you and your group are good with it, then you can go and copy, say, the rows that we want you to paste in or return back into that master drive, right? And so if we don't do this, what's going to happen is the thing will be due at 5 o'clock on Friday, and at 4:59, everybody will be on there trying to edit it, and it'll just cause issues. And so we just want to avoid that. And so what I'm saying is if we do craft a communal Google Sheet for us to use or for you guys to copy and use or whatever, there should just be that file in there. There shouldn't be multiple files. But invariably, this is what tends to happen. So this is from a class last semester. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm just showing it for illustrative purposes. Originally, there were a single copy of each of these different. There's a couple different files here, but there's one copy of each. And so this is just I just grabbed a representative sample because this happens all the time. But basically, if we look here, what we can see is some people made a copy of the respective data sheet, which is cool, but they left it there, right? And now it's going to start to get cluttered. And so what we oftentimes have is people just sometimes get confused. And so they might start entering their data instead of in our master class master data sheet, they might start adding it into group B's data sheet or something of that nature, right? So we just want to avoid that. And you can see that it's not me, right? So it's either me or Professor Spies. It would be the originator, the creator, the owner of it. But when people start to make their copy, you can tell that it's not us. So there are clues, but still it gets confusing. And when we get into the deadline, people are racing, and it causes some issues. So we just want you guys to be aware of that. And then also the other thing that can happen sometimes is people leave the same name, but they sort of will sort of take over the drive, and then it'll instead of saying me or Professor Spies is the owner, it'll say one of you guys, and then it gets really confusing. So just want to avoid that stuff. So what are we going to do? So what's the best practice for you to do if we have the situation? This applies to all your other classes. This isn't just for us here. But if we go over to the far right, there's those three ellipses, those three little dots, and just click those dudes. And it's going to give you a series of options that you can mess with. So there's two options. The first one I'll go through, and either one is fine, although I prefer the first one. So I prefer this one. So I prefer, okay, here's our file, cool, just go over, click the 3 ellipses, and then hit the download thing and download it to your laptop, download it to your desktop. Then you're good to go. If we have a power safety shut off, if there's a whatever, you can still work on it at home, right? You're not stuck on the cloud somewhere at the beck and call of the internet kind of thing. So that's the suggested one. But it's also fine if you want to do another route, which is to duplicate it in the cloud, right? So you want to make a copy of it, keep it in, say, Google Drive, but just your Google Drive, not our collective Google Drive. And so if that's the route you want to go, which is also legit, what you're going to do there is you're going to first hit make a copy as opposed to duplicate. And then you want to organize. So that's what these guys did. So these guys here, they made a copy, that's cool, but then they stopped there, right? So you want to make a copy. That is not it. So I'll say it again. Making a copy with Google Drive does not put it in your drive. It just makes a copy wherever it's living. So the first step, make copy. Second thing, hit organize. And then the other thing just to be aware of is a lot of times when we just, for ease and make sure it's simple for everybody, we usually will share the link as anybody with the link can see our data file, right? So that's cool. So you could be on some random computer and just click the link and get into it, but you aren't necessarily signed into your Google Drive. So just make sure that you are signed into your Google account to do this. And then when you hit organize, you'll see the options to move it to your file, to your location, right? So then you can move it to where you want it to be. And then the best practice, both with this and when you download it to your own file, you want to rename it, right? And so my suggestion always, and this is a best practice for dealing with data in general, whenever we get the raw file from the agency that we got it from, or you got it from me, or you get it from whoever the heck, right? Get that dude, get it all solid, make sure it's the data you want and everything cool. But then before you do anything, duplicate it, save a copy of it. So we always want that virgin copy, that copy we haven't touched, that copy we haven't accidentally changed a cell thing. We just want to have that master one. So if we're going down the road and editing, tweaking, massaging our data, and obviously we realize, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I corrupted the data somehow. We can always go back to the original. And so we always want to save that pristine version. And so the easiest thing there is just copy it and name it, working, or name it, group however you want to name it. In general, the best thing for stuff you submit to us, if we want you guys to do this, is to start the file with your last name. And that just helps us make sure, even though if, say, we upload it to the cloud, we could see who it is, but it's better to have the file name that way. It's just best practice. Okay, so we're gonna, if we're gonna do it in the cloud, if you're gonna keep it in the cloud, you're gonna duplicate it, you're gonna move it, and then you're gonna name it your name or whatever, right? And then you're good to go. Does that make sense? Such as general Google sharing Google stuff. Okay, cool. And the last little bit, if we are asking you guys to do some kind of data collection or merger or whatever, the other reason that we want to save this is have your own copy on your drive and or your desktop, is so that you have your pristine copy. And so what also happens sometimes when we have these group documents is nobody's trying to screw anybody, but sometimes just by accident, someone accidentally pastes their data instead of wherever they were going to paste it, they'll paste it on your area, let's say, right? And so then I look for it and I don't see your data, and I'm like, oh, whatever, William, you got a 0 on that. And you're like, what? No, dude, I did it. I'm like, nope, there's no data here. By having a local copy, it's super easy. Oh, sorry, Dr. A. Yeah, no, I had it. Somebody accidentally wrote over it. Here, let me grab it for you. And you can just grab it and throw it right back in, and you won't lose any points and that kind of stuff. And it also reduces everybody's stress. It just takes everybody's stress down, which is great. So you always know that if you're doing something, you have it there. The one other thing I'll just say about Google Drive, let's see. That's fine. I'll just note it right now. Excel can get massive. It can't get super massive, but it can get, I forget what the current limits are, 35,000 rows or something like that. I can't remember. So it can't be infinite, but it can be really, really, really large. So most of the kind of things that we would deal with ecological data is fine. When we get into things like satellite data or like kind of remotely sensed data, a lot of times Excel can't handle that size of the data. But for most of the things we deal with, Excel is good. With Google Sheets, let me just make sure you guys have a caveat. When you open it up, it looks like Excel, right? It's got rows, it's got columns and all that kind of good stuff, and it kind of looks the same. And if you can import a Excel sheet, you can copy and select the text or the cells, copy it, click on to the Google Sheet, paste it in, and vice versa. So it looks like it talks the same. No, because Google Documents live in the cloud and Google pays for that, they do not want to give you unlimited stuff. They want to give you what you need to do your stuff, but if you don't need more memory or more space to do your task, they don't want to give it to you because they're doing like billions of people, right? So they're trying to be efficient. And so what that means is if we go down the rows, there's only a certain number of rows. It usually starts off with 1,000. And you think 1,000, that's fine. But with some of these types of projects where we might be collaborating, maybe, Dylan has got like, I don't know, 200 rows, and somebody else has 200, and somebody has a 300. We can sort of get to that sort of fairly quickly sometimes. And it's fine. Google Sheets can handle more rows, but you have to you human have to tell it that. So if you are doing, or you work on your capstone or any project, and you realize that you're going to have a lot of rows of data, and you choose to work in the Google Sheets space, you really got to keep track of this, because there's been many times when we've lost data, and sometimes permanently. So what will happen is we're used to saying like, oh, I'm going to grab all this data, I'm going to select all this stuff, copy it, I'm going to go over here and paste it, right? And if there's a problem, it's going to go like donk, or give us a warning, or it ain't going to work, right? There's some kind of, error message or something like that. That's not what happens with Google Sheets. So if we selected, 10,000 rows or something in one of our files, and then clicked over into Google Sheets and hit paste, it'll go done. And you're like, okay, cool. But what it actually has done is it's cut off everything after 1,000 rows, or whatever the size of the sheet is. So what that means is if you are going to work with larger data sets and you're using Google Sheets, you want to first go to the bottom, and there's a little dialog box. It'll say how many rows, and just say, oh, add 1,000 rows, add 5,000 rows, or whatever, and then paste your stuff in. So otherwise it'll just disappear into the ether. So yeah, so those are the basics to know about Google Sheets. Everything else is pretty simple and straightforward. But yeah, cool. Questions about that?